earthquakes in history in the United States occurred along the Missouri-Madrid fault line, December 1811, and ended 3 months later in February 1812. And this is the area around Paducah going up into Missouri, okay? 3 of these earthquakes registered around 7.7 to 8.8 on the Richter scale. 3 months prior to that, a solar eclipse crossed over Paducah area south to north, and years earlier, another crossed over east to west, making a big X on the map. Now, April 8th, 2024, the same pattern of eclipses will mark the same X on the map. That's this year, folks. In 1811, this area was sparsely populated. Now over 30 million people live here. Could this portend another big one in the Mississippi Valley region coming upon us? Well, I'm not saying it will. I'm really not. I'm not saying that this is going to happen at all. But Jesus did say that there will be earthquakes in diverse or various places when desolations are determined. In Daniel chapter 9, verse 26, it says, after 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. And the end will be with the flood till the end of the war. Desolations are determined. So after 62 weeks, Messiah will be cut off, but not for himself. Note, this was fulfilled. This part of the scripture was fulfilled with Jesus coming and dying on the cross and being arose from the dead. That part has been fulfilled. But let's look at the other parts of the scripture, because this is how prophecy works. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Folks, this notes that there's prophetic patterns. There's prototypes that happened after this. That kind of gives you a clue by looking at the past what the future will look like, because there's prophetic patterns. One of them, after Daniel wrote this was recorded, Antiochus Epiphanes came and erected a statue of Zeus in the holy sanctuary. So you have prototypes of the Antichrist worldwide. If you follow Bible prophecy teachers, they'll tell you this. Prototypes, like Antiochus Epiphanes. The modern ones would be Adolf Hitler, Stalin, and Chairman Mao. These type of people are prototypes of of evil, and what the Antichrist wants to do, what type of government he wants to set up. All this is revealed in these prophetic patterns. So let's go back and look on the screen here. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. And that's a prophetic pattern. That is where the past reveals the future. In 70 AD, the prince of the people came and they destroyed the temple and the sanctuary. And likewise, the future Antichrist will be seen in the temple in a different way to destroy it, which we shall see as we go on. According to Bible prophecy, this will happen in 2 Thessalonians there. He will appear in the temple, a rebuilt temple. The second temple was destroyed. The 2nd century temple was destroyed by a prototype of the Antichrist coming in and destroying. Let's go on. It says, and the end of it shall be with the flood till the end of the war. Desolations are determined. That's a cryptic message. Let's break it down. The end of it, that means the end of the age. Things will happen fast. It'll be like a flood. It'll begin with a few drips and drops coming, and then it'll be a crescendo, a storm upon you. Okay, you'll see the storm coming and a few drops of rain, then all of a sudden the flood hits. Okay, that's what it's talking about. The next part reads, till the end of the war. Got to note that Revelations 12 verse 7 identifies this war as a war in heaven that's going on. That's why we are in a spiritual warfare. This is a war against good and evil being played out, and we are here on earth, are in the midst of it. And God tried to spare us of this, but, I won't get into all the details, but humanity fell into sin, and there's a battle going on for the hearts, souls, and minds of human beings everywhere, called a spiritual war. Let's continue on. Let's go to the next screen. Jesus is speaking of the last days, tells us how this flood, this storm begins, and what desolations are determined look like. In Matthew chapter 24, verses 4 through 15, he says, take heed, no one deceive you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, deceive many, and you will hear wars, rumors of war. see that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, and the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. These are the beginning of sorrows. And then there will be many offended, betray one another, and hate one another. There will be many false prophets will rise up to see many, and because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. Jump down to verse 15. And therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. What is he talking about? Let's look at the next verse. In Daniel chapter 9, verse 26, after the 62 weeks the Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end shall be with the flood, and the end of the war desolations are determined. So we're going to look real briefly at the number, or what the number 62 means. It's rather important. Kind of take a brief moment here, look at what the meaning of 62 is telling us. And 62 means the royal city of Jerusalem, maintained by the household of God's servants, or it can refer to any royal city and its inhabitants, and some type of reliance on the strength of servants of the house of Jerusalem to maintain it, or it can refer to any other royal cities or cities. Either they fail or succeed in its maintenance and protection. And 2b means servants who maintain, protect, anoint, who do task, war against, curse, put an end to, so forth, or whatever. The meanings are derived from 2 Chronicles chapter 26, verse 8, and Daniel chapter 9, 26 here. 2 Chronicles 26, verse 8 mentions a person's name, and the name meaning found in there are servants. Servants of, basically servants of the temple. And David wrote down there, these guys are servants. They're going to be warriors to help David. They're going to be servants to protect and maintain and upkeep the temple according to the law. The Levites, the priestly class, so forth, etc. The shepherds, okay? That's what that means. And there's a positive and negative meaning to 62. And royal city of Jerusalem is the main meaning. That's what it means, Jerusalem, or any type of royal city. It could be in a city is where somebody rules and sets up shop. And that is a very important thing to note, because back in the days that Jesus was on earth, those in charge to maintain the temple and the city failed. Likewise, this pattern is going to be seen in the last days, coming in like a flood very fast. The rain begins to fall, right? And slow drops, beginning with ministers thinking that what they teach is truth. But such truth cause many to apostatize. That means to stand away and against God's truth, sound doctrine, so forth, etc. As the storm increases, the true gospel will be lived out and preached by the remnant till the time of the end, just as Jesus said in Matthew chapter. Let's go look on your screen here, verses 13 and 14. But he who endures till the end shall be saved, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. And Daniel, look at Daniel 9:26. And the end of it shall be with a flood, till the end of the war desolations are determined. That is an extraordinarily important thing to keep in mind. I'm giving you a background so you understand what we're looking at here. It means there's going to be a remnant who's going to be a witness. And as a witness, they're going to witness against evil. We're going to end up testifying against it, expose it for what it is, and expose with our very lives its tactics, what it's like, what it does, how it alters what God has made, redefine what it is, what it seeks to destroy. We're to testify, witness against how it sells destruction and ruin and rot with sweet-sounding, seductive words of enchantment. The remnant exposes all that. They'll lay down their lives, if need to be, to expose the genocidal evil for what it is. And we are to preach the gospel and bring as many people into God's kingdom before it is too late, before the last hour comes. So let's look back at this slide again here. And the end shall be with the flood, till the end of the war, desolations are determined. What's all that talking about here? Let's look at this next verse in Daniel 9:27 here. Listen again. And he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. In the middle of the week, speaking of the Antichrist, he shall bring an end to the sacrifice and offering. And listen to what it says. And I wrote this out and put the meanings here for you. Keyword meanings. On the wing, the fringe, the farthest reaches over the zenith of abomination. Abomination are detestable things, lifestyles that are glamorized. Shall be one who makes desolate even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. In Daniel 9, chapter 9, verse 27, speaks of the Antichrist. In the first part of the text, the next part speaks of the spirit of Antichrist that is already at work in the world through people who are preparing for the coming and what they are doing, and it hits like a flood. And listen again, on the wing, the fringe, the farthest extremity, the zenith, when the zenith of abominations, of detestable things, all detestable things and lifestyles are glamorized. Think about it. Think about that for a second, what is being said here. So I'm going to ask you, have you seen any of these things increasing lately? Very detestable things and lifestyles that are being glamorized. Desolations are determined. The word translated determined implies a state of mauling, tearing down that astonishes a person. They can't believe it's happening. They can't believe that this is actually happening. How did this ever happen? How did the detestable things and lifestyles that are being glamorized, how do they happen? And goodness is silence. How did this happen? You feel like your back is against the wall. This is the storm coming. The drops of rain are beginning to fall. Desolations are determined to tear down God's order and design and to war against it. Remember, I talked about a spiritual war in the beginning. I'm trying to tie this together now. And the answer is found in the word abominations. On the fringe, the farthest extremity of abomination, this is when it reaches its fullness, involves a time when abominations have become the noble norms that and that everybody must follow. And it also implies the time that it takes to create and make that happen. So let's look at what this means. I'm going to go to Proverbs chapter 6 here. 16 through 19 tell us what and define what abominations are. These 6 things the Lord hates, yes, 7 are abomination to him: a proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift to running to evil, a false witness who speaks lie, and one who sows discord among the brethren. People, they read that, they yawn, they go to sleep. So what? What does that mean? No one takes, very few people take the time. I think Chuck Missler took the time and other people took the time to try to express this, but not many people even try to go into what any of this means, because this defines what abominations are. And it lists 6 things and 7 are what God hates. They're detestable to him. Okay. And these are it. Let's continue here. The text lists 7 things that are abomination to God. These things increase in the last days and mirror what Paul wrote about in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 10. I forgot. I put P there. 10. That should be a 0. Concerning perilous times. Those times are upon us. And in that text, Paul writes, in the latter days. The latter days is a phrase in the Greek, means the last port of call. This is it. This is how to recognize you reach the last days. This is it. This is the jumping off point, because perilous time means it's a time that astounds you, shocks you. You see the mauling coming, and you see what's going on, and you're wondering how you got here. This is last port of call, and he lists the list. Men become lovers of themselves, so forth, etc., etc. I'm not going there today. I'm just saying that's what he's talking about. So let's go to the next slide here. Look up what these mean. So let's look up what these mean. I wrote the key words in here, meanings. A proud, insolent, hubristic, prideful look. Look refers to eyesight, which means knowledge, understanding that looks down the nose at others. And they're going to do what they're going to do no matter what. It don't matter what you think, you're not considered in the equation. This is malignant, narcissist, and psychopathic and sociopathic behavior. Just like Paul wrote, men become lovers of themselves. Then next, a lying deceptive, slandering, character assassinating tongue. That means twisting language that justify doing what the hands do next. Hands metaphorically mean using one's strength, authority, and power as a right to attain possessions of something or someone else. How? By that shed innocent blood. Okay, so you have insolent, hubris looks, the look down the nose. They use knowledge and understanding that is above yours to justify what? Let's look at this again. Lying, deceptive, character assassinating, twisting language that justifies using your authority and power to attain possessions of other people or something. And they do it by shedding innocent blood. This is justified by having a heart that devises wicked plans. Let's look at what that means. A heart, mind, understanding that devises, grows to produce wicked plans. That means mischievous, empty, vain, futile pursuits that produce woe, sorrow in a manner that exalts the wicked at the expense of the victim. And note the word plans means devices, schemes, with a strong intention to carry it out at all costs. This connects to the next item on the list. What's that? Keep looking on your screen. Feet that are swift in running without consideration to evil. Evil means running towards what is dysfunctional, morally and ethically wrong, disagreeable, unwholesome, malevolent, malicious, harmful, vile, and evil, justified as achieving the greatest good. How does this work? By number 6, a false witness who speaks lies, deception, uses enchantments, hoodwinks others to slander those who are innocent wrongly and find them guilty of some false charge to gain power over them or to remove them because they're their opposition. We have modern examples of critical race theory, CTR, critical race theory, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion score, environmental, social, governmental scores. You have lawfare being waged. You have where the innocent have no recourse while the guilty get away scot-free. How they do this is revealed in the last item of the list on number 7. And one who sows deliberately with strong intent, discord, strife, contention, infighting among brethren. It's the divide and conquer idea here. Those are the 7 things that God absolutely hates, folks. And is any wonder? Folks, I gotta tell you that numbers often have meanings in the Bible, and that helps explain things. And I showed you some simple algorithms here last time to do. So we're going to do a straight algorithm here in this verse. It's Proverbs chapter 6:16. These 6 things the Lord hates, and yes, 7 are abominations. So you see the number 6 and the number 7 mentioned in here. So do the numeric meanings of these numbers mean anything? Yes, they do. We got to do the math. Remember, 6 is the number of man plus 7. That means it's a picture graph of a plow. It means move to perfection. And 13. So let me show you what this means. 6 is the number of man or a man, concerns plowing some type of perfection, wholeness, soundness, tending to it, to do warfare to protect it, guard and protect what is growing in the plowed field. Some type of wholeness, rest, soundness for life. That's what's talked about. Traditionally, 13 means apostasy, depravity, rebellion, hubris, anger, being an enemy or enemies of God. Put these number meanings together helps unpack what the abominations produce. A man attaches himself to achieve, because 6 is the number of man. It's a pictograph of a whole paleo pictograph of a tent peg. It's what people attach themselves to. That's the idea behind number 6. They can attach themselves to the Antichrist. The Antichrist will attach himself to the devil, so forth, etc. So you got the idea of attachment there. Attaches himself to achieve perfection, wholeness, soundness by plowing, warring, growing, tending to apostasy, depravity, rebellion, hubris, anger, being enemies of God, against God's rule, design, and order. Daniel chapter 9, verse 27 says what? And on the wing, the fringe, the farthest reaches, zenith of the apex of abomination, detestable things, lifestyles that glamorize, shall be one who makes desolate. So at the zenith, the farthest advances of abominations, what God hates is reached, shall be one who makes desolate. We're not there yet, folks, but we're speeding very close to that direction. That's how close we are coming to it. Notice how in 2 Thessalonians state that before the Antichrist arrives, there will be a great apostasy in the church. When adding the numbers 6 plus 7 equals 13, the main theme of 13 is apostasy. This is seen in the meaning of the number 62 that's found in Daniel chapter 9:26 concerning those servants of religious leaders who were charged to maintain the holy city and the temple, and they failed and they were cut off. You know why they were cut off? Because they cut off the Messiah at the 62nd week. They definitely failed being servants of God. The Pharisees did, the Sadducees, the scribes did, the shepherds did, right? Likewise, this pattern is going to be seen in the last day, a prophetic pattern coming fast like a flood. Ministers will apostatize by what they think that their teaching is truth. In Daniel chapter 9:26 says, and after the 62 weeks, Messiah will be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Then the end shall be with the flood until the end of the war. Desolations are determined. And this, folks, opens the door to what Daniel in chapter 9, verse 27 talks about. Now, in the wing, the fringe, the farthest reaches of the apex of abominations, detestable things, and lifestyles glamorized shall be the one who makes desolate. Are you noticing an increasing governmental push worldwide for glamorous lifestyles? I read how in certain states the other day that the number of gender transitions is increasing. Why? The propaganda is going, making you feel cool, but these people are going to regret that. They're going to regret it. They don't have time to process stuff in their own life and realize they might like the opposite sex more than anything else. But it's too late. You're not going to have babies. You got talked into something, right? So I ask, are we witnessing the demise of Western tradition of reason along with its Judaic-Christian values of civility, chivalry, and moral excellence? Have you noticed the creation of an androgynous new world along with all manner of perversions under the guise of inclusion to replace these values? Are you seeing a one political party in your country targeting political opponents and voters and views voters as threats to their concept of democracy? This is going on worldwide, folks. You seen any censorship? Have you noticed there's an enforcement of a mandatory groupthink narrative that you can't go against, or you're out, you're censored? How about new rules, new executive orders, laws that you never voted for, things that limits food production, confiscates land, destroys economic systems that once helped all to prosper without the help from the government or the elite? Have you noticed government now views its own citizens as problems? How these governmental entities force us to accept mass illegal migration without our consent? They're closing down schools, public schools, to house people. I think somewhere in New England's knocking on the door saying, people, you're going to have to open up your homes for these people. You're going to, you're doing this. We're going to go and find out how many rooms in your house, and we're going to solve the homelessness crisis. I mean, the migrant crisis by having them live in your house. Oh, it's going to be temporary. Oh, it's going to be temporary. Right, mandatory. I thank God we have a constitution. If smart people would realize that's again, the government can't seize your home or the military and house military personnel or whatnot in it. Man, it doesn't matter. The ends justify the means with these people. So are you seeing preparation for a surveillance state going on with like AI development increasing? There's holograms. Just recently, there's a concert was shown. I think it was in London and in Las Vegas and other cities around the world. Elvis Presley came back and it was a hologram and he performed and people couldn't tell that that was a hologram. It looked real. It was an AI generated concert of Elvis Presley on stage and people are buying tickets for that. Technology is really increasing. Knowledge will increase, the book of Daniel says. What 10 years ago took about 10 or 12 years ago to develop now takes just a few days. Chaos is unleashed on the streets, designed to weaken and destroy opponents of this new order of the age. You have genocidal terrorists now are being touted as heroes for the genocidal acts. Seen any of that lately? Before the Antichrist comes on the scene, there are those who are preparing the way for his arrival, seen by all by the normalizing of abominations going on and devising a politically legal structure to justify and redefine the meaning of what democracy means. When they say democracy, they don't mean what you and I interpret it. They mean something else. When they say I'm defending democracy, we can't have liberty and freedom. We have to censor because we got to protect our democracy. This is what they mean. I mentioned this a while back. It's called, the concept is totalitarian democracy, and Wikipedia defines this, and I quote from Wikipedia: totalitarian democracy is a term popularized by Israel historian J.L. Talmon. It refers to a system of government in which lawfully elected representatives maintain the integrity of a nation state whose citizens, while granted the right to vote, have little or no participation in the decision-making process of the government, end quote. Folks, this is a system where the government is elected by the population, yet they have no say or voice in what laws are passed. They have no representation at all. They're going to cram it down your throat, like it or not. It's a system where elected officials hold every ounce of power, governing without the consent of those who elected them to office. Totalitarian democracy consists of a ruling political, corporate, and elite class, along with all the cultural influencers, along with special interest groups working behind the scenes to acquire more and more power under the disguise of creating a more perfect, fair, equitable world. This system fears it. In fact, it really hates its own citizens. They view them as a threat. They call them unenlightened dweebs, deplorables, who must be housebroken to agree with them. Therefore, no tactic is out of bounds in acquiring power, because the ends justify the means. It's all about wielding absolute power, justified as needed to make a more perfect, just, equitable world. In other words, make a new feudalism the new hip thing to go after. The citizenry, the voters, are used as a tax base to fund policies that make desolation and create abominations, where every aspect of a citizen's lives are tracked, monitored, tagged, and controlled. Personal liberty, free thinking, even comedy, folks. Freedom becomes the new evil to these people, and evil is now the new good. It's a rules-based world order, a totalitarian democracy where children no longer belong to the parents, but those who make the rules. You hearing any of that and you're wondering why? What the heck is going on? Well, folks, let me tell you how. It's a historic fact. Theosophists like Allison Foster Bailey helped form the UN Charter. And many theosophists in the instigation of the UN and how it formed and were members of it were theosophists. And theosophists are in every nation and government around the world, silently working to make a brave new world, working within government, military, media, arts, entertainment, financial world, business, commerce, educational system, and science, technology, psychology, medical fields. They seek new ways to redefine what family is. They want your children. They want to re-educate your children so they're no longer you. They're world citizens, as Alice Bailey would say, are global citizens. Like I tell you, this is no conspiracy theory. This is not a conspiracy theory, but it's conspiratorial fact. The evidence is overwhelming in their own writings, and the WEF in Davos that's meeting soon, it's overwhelming on their own website. They identify who they are. They seek, as Theosophists put it, to push humanity out of its current fifth human root race stage of evolutionary development, leading them into the sixth human root race stage of evolutionary development around the year 2025. During this stage, humanity is housebroken to reject all aspects of materialism and all Judeo-Christian traditions, eradicating of reason, critical thinking, and liberty to replace by a loving, kind groupthink. So they view this, Theosophy says that we have to move out of the material realm. This is pure Gnosticism, folks. You have to get rid of the material, physical world and get human beings back to become pure spirit beings. So in the evolutionary development, they call the human root race theory. It's the human race root theory. You're going to go through stages of initiation until all the world comes under and enters into the sixth root race stage, then enters into the seventh, where you go through 7 more stages of the 7th stage, and you finally reach a state of pure spirit being, of groupthink. It's a perfect world. That's what these people are working for, and they camouflage this and really group love, group this, group that. So what do I mean by the 5th root race evolving into the 6th evolutionary, so forth? It means evolving. In fact, H.P. Blavatsky, occultist there, states in Secret Doctrine that at the beginning of what she calls the 6th root race stage of human evolutionary development, that, and I quote from her, there will be no more Americans when the 6th root race commences. No more, in fact, than Europeans, for they will have now become a new race and many new nations. H.P. Blavatsky wrote this in the late 1800s, folks. They've been planning this for some time. America has to be destroyed. Europe has to be destroyed, rebuilt back, become a new race, a new human race, a more higher evolved into the 6th root race stage of equity, inclusion, and diversity, into making everything right again. You own nothing and you will be happy. Yavo. That is the mentality of the 6th root race. We're going to bring this in. In order to do it, you have to destroy the Western system. This happens after the Western world has been deliberately and systematically collapsed and reset to lead all into a new, higher, more spiritually pure humanity, a new world nation state, a liberal, rules-based world order, a free and open global society, a diverse, no walls, no border world governed by group conformity, group love, group service, a totalitarian democracy of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And the Bible is correct. Desolations are determined. Next, in the book of Revelations, chapter 11 and verse 13, 2 sets of numbers are seen. The meaning of these 2 numbers help identify how close we are getting to the fringe wings, the utmost zenith of this abomination that we are seeing. So with that, folks, let's shift gears and see how all this connects to the biblical meaning of the number 42 that is seen in the book of Revelation, and from this, show you how to discover the meaning of Bible numbers from the Bible itself. It says this, but leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles, and they will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months. In the second place 42 is found here is Revelation 13 verse 5. And he, and speaking of the Antichrist, was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Now, what does all this have to do with anything right now? Well, these first help you discover how to find the shades of meanings of biblical numbers. So I'm going to really bore you for a little bit and try to make it entertaining at the same time. I don't know how. I'm going to show you how to interpret Bible numbers. This is how much work it takes. So in these 2 verses, these are the first 2 shades of meaning for the number 42 is found in those 2 verses. One concerns the Gentiles trampling the holy city of peace for 42 months or 3.5 years. And next is 42 is related to the Antichrist. And Revelation chapter 11, verse 2, trampling underfoot is a euphemism for rejecting with premeditative motive of destroying what is being trampled upon. Here in the context, it's having utter contempt for what is trampled on. In this case, it's both the holy city and trampling on the things God has ordained and called and named. Utter contempt for his people, his gifts, his callings, and his promises. Revelation chapter 11 verse 2 is related to folks who help the Antichrist come to power. They have utter contempt. They seek to destroy what God has designed. And next, what a city means in Bible times indicates a place where someone ruled from, a mayor, whatever. We have mayor or so forth. We have the same system, a provincial government, whatever. So a city in the Bible times indicates a place where someone ruled from, as well as identified something about the area or the town was located. For instance, Bethlehem means house of bread. And so that was a place where wheat was grown and they threshed and they made bread there. Just a little bit north of there was a little place where all the lambs were brought in for temple sacrifice, and they were seeing which one was the pure one. They say that's where Jesus was born. Okay, just think about that. So the holy city in the text here refers to Jerusalem, the city of peace. That's what Jerusalem means, the city of peace. Peace means whole, sound, in heart and mind. It means a place of stability, rest, and so forth. Symbolically, you can also say a city is where God sets up shop and where he can govern from, that helps people become whole, sound in heart and mind and body. God assigns his human servants to help maintain this. They are called shepherds in the Bible. See, I'm going somewhere with this, okay? And we see this same concept with the meaning in the number 62. How servants who were charged to maintain the holy city and temple failed, and how the prototype Antichrist came along after this and destroyed it all. With that, I'm going to go to this next slide here. It says in Revelations here, verse 11:2, but leave out the court which is outside the temple. Do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles, and they will tread the holy city for 42 months. Notice how in Revelation 11:2 it mentions that a certain type of people were placed outside the temple. The temple represents God's authority, laws, morals, values, ways, his design, as well as what God inhabits. Note the temple in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16 through 17 states that New Testament believers are now his temple now. It says it, and I'll read it to you. Do you not know that you are the temple of God, and the Spirit of God dwells in you? If anyone defiles the temple, God will destroy, for the temple of God is holy. Which temple are you? Those who are cast out, Gentiles, who destroy what is holy, what is holy, or the holy city, the current Jerusalem, as well as whatever God has set up shop in the world, is what is being referred to here. I don't know how else to say it. Other than that is what it's talking about. So there's going to be seen here a third. Let me try to explain this and break this down for you. There's going to be a third temple built in the holy city, and the Bible points this out. Before that comes, there comes a time that of the nations, and where people will come and ethnos, people around the world are going to, and leaders, basically leaders, are going to trample the holy city for 42 months. They have utter contempt and disrespect for Jerusalem and God's Jewish people. In fact, in 1967, Jerusalem was no longer under control of Gentiles' powers. In the time of the Gentiles was fulfilled, they say. But it's still divided to this day. And that is one hallmark to note that indicates that the full end and complete time of the Gentiles trampling the holy city is nearing its final end. We haven't reached it yet, folks. However, it is still divided into ethnos, quarters. It is still being trampled on by Gentile nations and powers. If you don't believe me, this two-state solution is one example of what I'm saying. The protests you're seeing around the world against Israel is another example. And Jerusalem, it says in the Bible, is going to be a burdensome stone around the neck of the nations, is another example of this. So the biblical meaning of 42 helps contextually identify how close to the end times we are without anything adding to the book that should not be there. It's like a scholarly commentary does, or somebody teaching on the book of Revelations that is right on the money. They're not adding anything to it. A commentary is not adding anything to the context or changing it at all. They're help explaining it, unpacking it, and revealing it to you. And so these numbers as well do that too. So let's look at this and break this down for you. Mr. Lane's Bible Numbers for Life website defines 42 simply as evil people or evil men. What gets it in the ballpark, evil men or evil people. These are two shades of meaning for 42 that are seen in Revelations chapter 11 and 13 there, and they are simply stated: an evil man, the Antichrist, his tactics of blasphemies to alter God's domain. And I'm doing this from the context. Evil people, men, individual, arrogant, evil servants who oppose, kill, rob, deceive, speak blasphemies to destroy God's people goodness, who are under the spirit of Antichrist to prepare the way for its appearance on earth. That is what the beginning, how to break down, how to find biblical number meanings from where they're found in the Bible. Some numbers aren't, and you have to do another method. We'll do that on probably next week. I'll show you how to do that. But for now, I'm going to show you the step-by-step method. You're going to have to do some digging. It takes a lot of work to find out what the number 42 means. And there's a lot to this, folks, a lot to it. That's what we're doing. So I suggest you use some Bible software and type in the number 42, however it's written in your Bible. Find wherever 42 is written in the Bible. This helps uncover other shades of meaning. I just given you a couple of shades of meaning. And then you got to use some logic and logical deduction and reasoning and tie the loose ends together. You must pay attention to the details, number of the numbers, where they're found, the meaning of names that are around them, the storylines there. They all connect and create a theme for the shade of meaning. I simply go to and type in the number. I find out where it is. I do my research. I'm going to show you just that right now. So let me give you a real quickly bullet point here what I'm doing here. So 42 is found in Ezra chapter 2 verse 24 and Nehemiah chapter 7 verse 66. And both refer to the sons as well as the house of Asmaeth. It is the meaning of the name or names seen in the text that helps us find further shades of meaning. Here, Asmaeth means strong as death, or it can read strong unto death, or even as one who fights to the death, indicating someone who is a true, dedicated believer. He can be either good or bad. I mean, that's just what it means. That's one shade of meaning. Next, in 2 Chronicles, chapter 22, the number 42 is seen again. It says, Ahaziah means sustained, held by the Lord, was 42 years old when he became king, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Athaliah, and it means afflicted by Jehovah, and Omri means pupil or servant of God. You can say a disciple as well. 2 verse 3, he also walked in the ways of Ahab, uncle, a close relative. Okay, from this, you will have to take time to write a brief summary of the lives of those mentioned. And from that, you add in the meaning of each name. And from this, you'll notice that there are those who once walked that were sustained by the Lord, but now are afflicted by Jehovah. They were once servants, pupils who studied God. Now they walk in the ways of Ahab, and Ahab brought pagan worship into Israel and did vile things and made murderous plots against God's people and the prophets and those loyal to God. Did he not? Thus 42 also describes people appearing as followers of God, but caused others to stray away from God by bringing paganism and vile plots and schemes into the house of God, like Ahab did. These folks God's going to afflict. This helps bring out the 2B definition for 42. Okay, let's go ahead and look. It means, okay, the first meaning, we saw evil person, Antichrist, his tactics, okay? Now 2A means evil people and evil individual, arrogant evil servants who oppress, kill, rob, deceive, speak blasphemies, destroy God's people, his goodness, so forth, etc. So this 2B meaning, it refers to people, because we saw groups of people. It means two people or individuals who appear at first following God but bring pagan worship, practices, plots, and schemes and scams into the house of God to alter it. These people God will afflict. The third shade of meaning is derived from the meaning of Asmath. People or individuals who are dedicated, strong unto death to carry out a task or a mission. Okay, do you see that in that? Okay, so 42 is also seen in 2 Kings. Chapter 2, verse 24, when two bears mauled 42 insolent youths. From David Guzik's commentary on this very verse, he states that these youths were from Bethel, and I quote, and their mocking presence shows the continuing opposition to a true prophet in Bethel, which at that time was the chief center of pagan calf worship. There's more to this story than meets the eye. You got to do some digging to find the story line and what's going on. It goes back to pagan worship, doesn't it? You see how numbers in the Bible and their meanings and the shades of meaning kind of connect one with another? Bethel back then was the chief center for Baal worship, calf worship, bull worship, Molech. These young men were actually telling Elijah to go away twice. In other words, you got a double portion, go away, get out of here, get away, go back to heaven quicker than Elijah did. They're telling him to leave us alone, Baldy. Their calf gods are bigger than your God. Leave us alone. You have no power here. So it says in the text, Elijah curses, but the word curse refers rather to that he left it up to God to defend him. And God does. How? Then 2 bears came and mauled these 42 youths. Why? Why 2 bears? I have no idea why 2 bears are. But 2 means house or animal king. It could also mean the animal kingdom of bears, maybe. I don't know. Who acted as the bearers of God's vengeance upon the insolent. They also worshipped Nintura. Nintura. I don't know the Canaanite name for Nintura. That's the Mesopotamian, and that was the goddess over the beast. So there could be some relation in that. I don't know why God sent 2 bears. It would make sense to me. God would use evil to get rid of evil and teach them a lesson. So you go figure. I don't know the whole ramifications of this, of why the 2 bears are there. But Elijah curses. He leaves it up to God. That's how he didn't really curse and swear at him. He just left it up to God to defend him. So the 2 bears came. They mauled the 42 youths. Okay. So those basically what it's saying here, that the number 42 shade of meaning is the God's vengeance is going to somehow fall upon the insolent. Okay. And those who bring paganism into God's house. And the meaning of the name Bethel means house of God. So the youths, the insolent ones, brought pagan worship into Bethel, aka meaning the house of God. And they wanted Elisha to get the heck out of here. Go back to heaven. There's 2 witnesses that are going to come, and you wonder if they're going to be shouting the same things. So here's where the Baal, Moloch, bear beast worship is added in definition as 1b, into definition 1, as section 1b, because they are part of the Antichrist system at work in the world, preparing for his arrival. Okay? Why do I say that? Because the ancient pagan mythologies here refer to raising somebody out of the abyss, a champion who will defeat the demiurge. So their youths were saying, get out of here. We don't need you. Their champion's bigger than yours. Oh, yeah? So God sent 2 bears to maul them. So you have the meanings here of this. This will be an evil man, the Antichrist's tactic. That's the first meaning. The second meaning are those who practice Baal, Moloch, bull calf, spirit, or beast worship. They involve the rites and rituals used to bring their champion forth to defeat God of the Bible. So you got to know a lot of stuff and connect the dots to interpret numbers correctly. This is not an easy task. Next, you add 42 youths plus 2 bears, and you get 44 as the sum here. In Bible numbers for life, 44 refers to secret plots, murderous schemes, and vain plans. Thus, you have a 4th shade of meaning added into the text. It means judgment against the insolent and secret murderous plots. It's part of the meaning of number 42. Okay, here's the full meaning of 42, and note the context with the number is found pinpoints which meaning applies. And here's the full meaning of 42. Evil person, the Antichrist, his tactics, blasphemies to alter God's domain to be worshipped and brought forth. Number 1b, Baal, Moloch, bull, calf, and bear beast worship rites and rituals used to bring their champion forth to defeat God of the Bible. It also involves the occultic work seen in Ezekiel chapter 13, verses 17 and 23. And note, the ancient Mesopotamian Canaanite religion revolves one who defeats the old gods by their champion. Okay? Number 2, evil people. This concerns people. Evil people are an evil individual, arrogant evil servants who oppress, kill, rob, deceive, speak blasphemies to destroy God's people goodness, who reflect the spirit of Antichrist to prepare the way for his appearance on the earth. 2b, people are individuals who appear at first following God, but bring pagan worship practices and plots and schemes into the house of God to alter it. These people God will afflict. Number 3, meaning People are individuals who are dedicated, strong unto death to carry out tasks or missions no matter what. 4. Judgment rendered against the insolent for their secret plots and schemes. Folks, that is the definition. Okay? So let's get back to the context and look at Revelation chapter 11:2 again. It says, Revelation chapter 11 verse 2 says, "But leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles, and they will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months." And trampling expresses contempt, disdain, so forth, etc. Outside the temple is tied contextually to Revelation chapter 22, verses 14 and 15. It refers to those outside the temple are referred to as dogs, meaning androgynous, and sorcerers, sexually immoral, murderers, idolaters, and whoever loves and practices a lie. In other words, those who practice abominations to bring down God's order and design in our life are these types of individuals. These types of people will be seen in governmental agencies around the world pushing their totalitarian democracy to tread underfoot the holy city for 42 months, 3.5 years. Okay, in that end time period. On the outer fringe of abominations, okay, this one arise, and they will do that. Again, symbolically, it also indicates the time leading up to that 3.5 year period that begins after the fringe of abominations have reached its zenith. So we're going to look at this last slide here. We're going to look at definitions 2a and 2b, and these contextually help reveal what these Gentiles are doing, not only in the holy city of Jerusalem in the future, but also wherever God has set up shop in the world to make folks whole again, leading up to the final 3.5 years. So let's put it together. Did I confuse you yet? I hope I not. Revelation chapter 11:2, "But leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles, and they will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months. Outside the temple is tied, like I said, to the types of people who tread the holy city. And the definitions 2a, b, 3, and 4 contextually reveals what these folks are doing, not only in the holy city of Jerusalem in the future, but also wherever God sets up shop in the world. So let me reiterate this again. This is what it means. Let me just say this. You don't use definitions 1b, 1a and 1b in this, because it doesn't refer to an individual. It refers to people and that are on a task. So evil men, individuals, more than one individual, and arrogant evil servants oppress, kill, rob, deceive, speak blasphemies to destroy God's people goodness, prepare the way for the Antichrist appearing on earth. Even those who appear at first following God will instead bring pagan worship practices, plots, and schemes into the holy city, wherever God has set up shop. These folks are strong unto death, dedicated to carry out this task mission no matter the cost, to trample the things of God. However, judgments will be rendered against their insolent and secret plots and schemes. So, take heart, folks. God's going to deal with these folks. Now, remember this, folks, what Psalms chapter 2, verse 1 says: "The nations rage and plot vain things. They take counsel together against the Lord and his anointed, saying," now, you don't see us. See how this stuff starts to connect. Notice how the context of Revelation chapter 11, verses 1 through 14 also connects to the two witnesses rendering judgment against those nations, governments, and people allied with the Antichrist who like to trample down the things of God. These are faithful unto death and to God himself. Okay, that's the two witnesses. They are put to death by the beast, but after 3.5 days they arise from death to be united back to the Lord. So behold, 3 means to be united back, and 5, behold. Okay, I digress. After their departure back to the Lord, behold, the whole world is mauled, not by bears, but by God's pronouncement of judgment against the wicked, in complete context with the entire book of Revelation and end-time prophecy too. The two witnesses leave it up to God to pronounce the final curse, just like Elijah did with the 42 insolent youths. Folks, again, the two witnesses come to implement judgment from God, but leave the final judgment in God's hands to complete proper context of the book of Revelation. This is but one example how to discover the shades of biblical number meanings. It takes work and time. But folks, we are not done yet. There's more to the commentary that first meets the eye. But I'm going to leave that for next week, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. I'm going to close with this. If you'd like to look on your screen, and if you'd like to contact and support what I do, connect with me, support what I do, just look on your screen. All my contact information's there. And my book up there, my new book is not on there yet because it hasn't come out yet, but A Land Unknown, Hell's Dominion is my book. You can support, email me, ask me questions. I hope I can get to all the emails in some time. But also, if anybody contacts you by email begging and pleading for money, that is not me. Please let me know so I can try to do something about that. With that, you guys be blessed in Jesus' name.